Horror doesn't begin with a scream. It begins with a routine, a harmless habit, repeated one too many times. She was just a girl, 14, quiet, ordinary. She always walked home alone. From school to her house, it was exactly 14 minutes. She knew every crack in the sidewalk, every flickering street lamp, every barking dog behind each rusted gate. It was the same every day. So consistent, it became muscle memory. But that's the problem with routines. You stop noticing when the world changes around them. She always left at 2 p.m. She always passed the bakery on 5th. She always crossed near the corner where the broken traffic light blinked amber forever. And she always walked alone. Until one Thursday. She didn't. She didn't realize it at first. The wind was a little colder. The street a little quieter. The sky overcast in a way that made shadows stretch unnaturally. She walked the same pace, same turn at the pharmacy, same shortcut through the alley behind the old library. But something had shifted. Not in the world in her. That day, it didn't feel like she was walking home. It felt like she was walking into something else, something waiting. At first, she dismissed it. Maybe she was tired. Maybe she was just overthinking. But then she heard it. A sound so soft, it could have been her imagination. A footstep. Then another. But not hers. It was delayed, like someone was walking behind her, mimicking her pace a heartbeat too late. She stopped. The steps stopped. She turned. No one. The alley was empty. But suddenly it didn't feel abandoned. It felt observed. She shook it off, laughed nervously, and kept walking. But she didn't realize that was the first mistake. Because fear doesn't come at you with claws. It whispers. It waits. And it always starts with something so small. You'll convince yourself it wasn't real. That walk home, her daily escape, was no longer hers. She didn't know it, but the moment she noticed the change, she activated something. As if some old forgotten thing had been watching, waiting for someone to walk that exact path, at that exact time. One too many times. And when she noticed the pattern, it noticed her. That night, she didn't sleep well. The wind howled differently. The shadows under her bed seemed deeper. The hallway light flickered once, then again. But again, she told herself it was just tiredness, just stress, just a normal girl's imagination. But horror doesn't care what you believe. Horror doesn't need belief. It only needs repetition, because the path she walked had become more than routine. It had become a ritual, a pattern repeated enough times to summon something unspoken, unseen. And that's when the rules changed. From now on, every step she took on that path would count. Every glance behind her would matter. Because once something starts walking with you, it doesn't always stop. And it certainly doesn't ask permission to follow you home. Some sounds stay with you forever. A voice in the dark. A breath when you're alone. Or footsteps that don't belong to you. It was Friday. The next day, she almost forgot about the strange feeling from Thursday, the shift in the air, the invisible presence in the alley, the pause in her chest. Almost, but when she stepped outside the school gate at 2 p.m. sharp, something inside her paused. Like her body remembered what her mind tried to dismiss. She adjusted her backpack, forced a smile, and kept walking. The first half of the walk was normal, almost boring. Cars passed, kids laughed across the street, wind tugged at her sleeves. But when she turned the corner past the bakery on 5th, the same corner she'd turned 100 times, the air changed. Still, heavy, too quiet. And that's when she heard it again. Click, shuffle, click, shuffle. She stopped walking. Her heart paused mid-beat, no sound. She took a slow step forward. Click, shuffle. Another step. It followed. She turned around. Nothing. Just the sidewalk behind her. A long stretch of cracked pavement. Empty. But she wasn't alone. She could feel it now. Not in her skin, in her bones. In the marrow of her legs that suddenly felt heavier, like they were being pulled backward. She started walking faster. Not running. Not yet. She didn't want to look afraid. She didn't want to give it a reason. But the sound followed. Faint. Wrong. The steps didn't match her own. They were delayed. Just behind. 1 second slower. Like something learning how to walk. By copying her. She reached the alley behind the library. She always took it as a shortcut. It saved her 3 minutes. But today, something in her screamed. Don't go in there. The alley yawned open before her. Tall fences, garbage bins, graffiti scratched into brick, It looked the same, but it didn't feel the same. She hesitated. The air behind her went cold. Not wind, just cold. And then a breath, soft, barely audible, but it came from inches behind her neck. She spun around. Still nothing. The street behind her was empty. Still. Too still. Not even birds. That was the moment she realized something horrifying. She wasn't walking toward home anymore. She was being walked into something. She turned back to the alley, and she saw it, just for a second. A tall shadow, too thin, too long. At the far end, stepping back into the wall like smoke. Gone. She ran. No thinking, no breath, just pure instinct, the kind of fear that precedes the scream. When she finally reached home, she locked the door behind her and dropped to the floor. Her legs trembled, her heart was racing, but her ears, they were still listening for that second set of steps, for that sound that had no reason to exist because she had been walking alone. But now she knew. She wasn't. The most terrifying paths aren't the ones that lead somewhere new. They're the ones that pretend they've been the same all along. She didn't want to take the alley again. After what happened on Friday, those impossible footsteps, that breath at her neck, that shadow, she promised herself she'd stick to the main road. Safer, more people, more light. But the following Monday, when school ended and the bell rang at 3:00 p.m., the moment she stepped outside, she paused because something looked off. The path she had walked home hundreds of times before wasn't the same. It wasn't broken or blocked. It just felt rearranged. The world doesn't need to shift violently to terrify you. Sometimes, a 2-degree tilt in reality is enough to destroy everything you trust. The street ahead looked familiar. Same pharmacy on the left, same traffic light, same long row of fences painted sky blue by the city 2 summers ago. But the angle was wrong. It curved now, subtly, a gentle bend that didn't belong. She had never noticed it before, and she would have, because she always walked this way. Always. She shook it off. Maybe she never really paid attention. Maybe she was imagining it. So she walked forward, turned the usual corner, and that's when she saw the sign. Not a warning, not a symbol, a street sign, one that shouldn't exist. It read, Marrow Lane. She froze. That wasn't the street's name. It had always been Crescent View. She was sure of it. She'd passed it every single day for years. Marrow Lane didn't even sound real. It sounded like something dug out of bone. And suddenly, the world around her got quieter. No cars, no birds, no distant chatter. Just the wind, soft, deliberate, as if the air was waiting. She pulled out her phone, opened the GPS. It blinked. Location, unknown. No streets, no dot, just gray, static. She refreshed. Nothing. She tried to text her mom. The message didn't send. Signal, none. She wasn't offline. She was off map. You know something's wrong when the world forgets where you are. She turned around. The street behind her was different now. The sidewalk was thinner, the houses unfamiliar. One of the street lamps flickered in rhythm as if pulsing to her heartbeat. Panic rose. Her feet moved on their own, faster. Down the curved path, past empty houses with windows that watched. And then there it was again. That same bakery from 5th Street. Exactly the same. Same cracked sign, same door, same red awning, except it was on a street that didn't exist. She wasn't looping. She wasn't lost. She was being led. And then she saw it. A figure, just ahead, facing away. Still, unmoving. It looked like her. Same bag, same walk, same hair. But it wasn't, because the moment the figure turned, its face was empty. Smooth, as if skin had been pulled over where eyes and a mouth should be. She screamed, but the air swallowed it. No echo, no response. It's one thing to feel like you're being followed. It's another when the thing behind you knows your name. The air had changed. It wasn't just the strange street names, the wrong turns, or the houses that didn't belong. Now, the wind was speaking. It started subtly. She was sitting on her bed, trying to convince herself it was all just in her head, that she'd gotten turned around, that the stress of school was finally catching up. But when the breeze pushed through the open window, soft, cold, whispering against her skin, she heard it. Not clearly, not loudly, but enough. A sound, soft, syllables on the edge of reality. Emma, her name, Whispers don't always need volume. They just need to know where to find you. She jumped up and slammed the window shut, locked it, pulled the curtains tight. Her heart was racing, her ears straining for a repeat, but there was nothing, only silence. That night, she barely slept. Every creak in the floor, every groan in the pipes, every gust of wind felt like it was trying to talk to her. The next day at school, she walked faster, didn't wait to chat, didn't laugh at lunch. She just watched the clock. She had a plan. She'd walk a different route. Avoid the alley, avoid 5th Street. Take the longer path near the main road, where cars and people buzzed like white noise. Safety and sound, in crowds. She thought it would help, but horror doesn't care about logic. As she walked, the wind followed. She felt it pressing against her back, cool, deliberate, almost like fingers. She passed a group of boys playing soccer on a side lawn. One kicked the ball too hard. It rolled to her feet. She bent down to pick it up and froze, because written across the ball, in smudged marker, was her name, Emma. Her hand trembled. She looked around. The kids were gone. The houses were silent, windows closed. No cars, no life. She dropped the ball and ran, down the street, across the corner, through another shortcut, one she didn't recognize but hoped would connect somewhere familiar. But the whisper came again, this time, clearer, right at her ear. Emma, stop running. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She just stopped. Because if it could speak, if it knew her name, then it had been closer than she thought. Longer than she realized. It hadn't just noticed her last week. It had been watching for months, maybe even years. And names. Names are invitations. In some ancient belief systems, knowing your name gives power, control, access. That night, she found scratches under her bed. Not claw marks, not nails, words. Her name, etched over and over, some spelled right, some backwards, like something was practicing. Her reflection in the bathroom looked off, not distorted, just delayed. Like it took a split second longer to follow her movement, like it was thinking. That's when she understood. She wasn't being hunted, she was being studied. It knew her patterns, it knew her route. The scariest thing isn't being alone. It's realizing you're surrounded and still invisible. Emma walked into school the next morning, clutching her bag tighter than usual. She hadn't slept, she hadn't eaten, but she came anyway because school was supposed to be normal, familiar, safe. And more than anything, she needed someone to see her. But the moment she walked through the gate, she noticed it. No one looked her way. Not the teachers, not her classmates, not even her best friend, Kayla, who normally waved from the lockers. She walked right past her. No eye contact. No, hey, nothing. Like Emma was just background noise. At first, she thought they were messing with her. Maybe it was a joke, a prank. But by second period, the reality sank in. When the teacher called roll, her name was skipped. When she raised her hand, it wasn't seen. When she whispered Kayla's name during group work, her friend didn't even flinch. She was there, but she wasn't. Lunch came. She sat down across from her usual group. They laughed. They passed fries. They shared TikToks. But none of them acknowledged her. She spoke. She touched one girl's arm. The girl shivered and turned around, confused, like a chill had passed through her spine, like a ghost had touched her. And maybe that's what Emma was becoming. Not missing, not dead, just phasing out. When she looked at herself in the bathroom mirror during break, she saw the signs. Her reflection was dimmer. The lights above her flickered only over her stall. Her voice sounded distant even to herself. She pressed her fingers to her face. She still felt human, still felt skin. But the girl looking back at her, she looked like someone else was trying to wear her shape. That afternoon, Emma walked home. No one offered to walk with her. No one noticed she was gone. And the shadows on the sidewalk, they noticed. The path stretched longer than usual. Time moved slower. And when she passed the old bakery, she heard the bell ring. But the door never opened. It was the same as always, but off in ways she couldn't describe. That's when it clicked. It wasn't the world that had changed. She was fading from her life, from people's memory, from space, as if something was slowly copying her, and once the copy was perfect, the original would no longer be needed. Back home, she rushed to her parents. She shouted, cried. Her father looked through her. Her mother walked past, calling her name as if she were still upstairs. Emma stood in front of them, screamed. Nothing. She ran to her room, looked in the mirror again. The reflection blinked before she did, smiled when she didn't, then tilted its head and mouthed words she couldn't hear. But she didn't need to. She understood. It's better this way, because the scariest monsters aren't the ones that chase you. They're the ones that replace you. All stories have a beginning, but only horror stories walk beside you until the end. Emma didn't go to school that day. She couldn't. What would be the point? No one saw her. No one heard her. She had become invisible, a glitch in her own life. And worse, something had taken her place. It wasn't an exact copy. Not yet. But it was close enough. Close enough that her mom didn't notice the difference. That her reflection sometimes smiled without her. She sat in her room, watching the clock. Tick, tick, tick. 2 p.m. Her usual time to leave school. And from her window, she saw it. A figure, walking her route. Same backpack, same jacket, same slouched shoulders. It was her, but it wasn't. That's when she realized it wasn't following her anymore. It was leading. Emma grabbed her shoes and ran out the door, down the stairs, past her silent parents, out into the gray light of afternoon. She had to see where it went. She had to stop it. She followed the figure at a distance, through the alley behind the library, past the bakery on 5th, across the bend that never used to exist. Everything looked the same, but felt like a memory someone else was having for her. And the figure, it walked with purpose. Every step confident, like it belonged, like it had done this 1,000 times. It stopped at the corner where the old telephone pole leans left, the place where Emma always paused to tie her shoes. The figure turned, looked straight at her, but it had no face. Not anymore. Only the impression of one, like a mask molded out of fog and memory. And it whispered, "Thank you." Then it stepped backward and vanished into the shadow behind the pole. Emma ran to the spot. Nothing. Just the wind. Just the road. But when she looked down, her shadow was gone. She turned in circles, spun beneath the dim sun. Her arms, her legs, they cast nothing. She reached home in silence. Her house stood as it always did, but the door was slightly open. The lights inside glowed warmly. Laughter echoed faintly from the living room. And when she stepped inside, she saw herself, sitting, eating dinner, smiling, talking. Her parents, listening, responding, loving. She stepped forward, raised her voice, screamed, "Nothing." The version of her at the table paused, then slowly looked toward the doorway. Their eyes met, and the copy smiled, a perfect, warm, loving smile. Then whispered in a voice only she could hear, "You made room." Emma backed away, out the door, onto the street. No one saw her. No one ever would again. The final walk wasn't the one that led her home. It was the one that made her disappear, because the shadow that used to follow her had become her. And the girl who once walked alone from school would now walk forever, alone, unseen, unheard, just behind someone else's steps. And if you ever hear footsteps when you're walking alone, don't turn around, don't look back, because it might just be her.